Well, hello there. My name is Martin and I'm from India. I'm really honored to be able to present at the European Union's International Conference on Social Sciences. Since today is Saturday, let me tell you what I usually do on weekends. And then we can talk about what I do on weekdays. On the weekends, I play the guitar, the ukulele, and I sing at church. I love to read, play board games, and write articles. On average, I read about 50 books a year, and most of them on the weekends. I also teach statistics and music. I am the quintessential stereotypical nerd, especially on the weekends. I got married exactly 2 months back, and ever since it's been a roller coaster ride. I've been learning to cook, I've been learning to keep my house clean, and I've been taking long walks, going cycling, watching movies with my wife. We just watched Captain Marvel yesterday, and it's a pretty good movie. I love to travel. Here's a picture of me with new friends I made at the Andamans, a sea cucumber and a starfish. Now, what do I do between Monday to Friday? Well, I work with Shipley Associates, the world leader in business proposal strategy, proposal management, and proposal writing. We help organizations of all sizes across the world from a wide range of industries write compelling, compliant, and comprehensive proposals. I am a part of the APMP, a global association of proposal management professionals, which has chapters across the globe, including different countries in the EU. I serve as the vice chairman of the APMP chapter in Hyderabad. Without much ado, let me introduce you to my research paper. I've titled it The Salesperson with a Speech Impediment. You see, I believe that business proposals are a lot like salespeople, but with crippling speech impediments. They try to do the same thing that salespeople do, but with a lot less efficiency and effectiveness. I wanted to understand why some business proposals succeeded while most of them failed. So I spent the last 1 year trying to speak to proposal evaluators across the world and understand them. I asked 42 proposal evaluators, specifically from an IT background, if they ever evaluated business proposals without a bias. And all of them said yes. At least once, they all had to exclusively rely on evaluating a business proposal and then had to make the decision on who they would award the business to. So I asked these evaluators why they rejected most proposals, and they simply said that they did not like them. This was an answer that was so frequent that we had to coin a term to define it. Not liking a proposal, we started calling it proposal aversion. Our elaborate research and interviews led us to categorize the reasons behind proposal aversion into 3 groups. Group 1 was the lack of aesthetics, which included everything like poor graphics, a nasty cover page, bad layout, and this was reported 8% of the times as the reason behind proposal aversion. Then you had the lack of clarity, which was reported 29% of the times. This was caused because of jargon, content that was just too hard to understand. And then you had the lack of logic, which was reported 63% of the times, which means that 2 out of 3 times nearly, the proposals that created aversion were the ones that had logical inconsistencies. They were unable to persuade the evaluator to read further. Now, to understand this, to understand the presence of logical fallacies in business proposals, we studied 50 business proposals from 4 different organizations to understand what logical fallacies were the most frequently occurring ones in the proposals. Now, here are the 10 most common logical fallacies we found in business proposals. Now, fallacy number 1 is the slippery slope. This was the most frequent logical fallacy we noticed in business proposals. Proposals frequently used boilerplate content that contained assumptions from previous experiences which were irrelevant to the current proposals. Then you had the appeal to authority, where the writer aim to impress customers with statements like experts said so. These arguments had the potential to be irrelevant to the opportunities that the proposal writer was writing to address. Then you had the argument by gibberish. This logical fallacy is caused by content that is almost impossible to comprehend and is exclusively written to evade a direct answer to a simple customer question. Gibberish and ambiguity sometimes were used in a bid to impress the reader, but quite often they had the exact opposite effect. The fourth fallacy is the strawman fallacy, where a proposal creates and also solves a problem that the customer does not have. It is very, very distracting. The fifth is the hasty generalization. The hasty generalization fallacy happens when proposals rely on previous experience to solve a current problem. Claims such as customers A and B, who are your competitors, had the problem X, and hence we are sure that your problem too is the same thing, seems to be an approach that is very common in business proposals. Also, we've noticed that proposals quite often have the words sure, guarantee, assured, etc. And proposal writers must be very careful when they use such words in a business proposal. It is a hasty generalization. If written to a company in the EU, the organization that has authored the proposal can even be taken to court if that assurance which is stated is not met. The next fallacy is the infamous Texas sharpshooter fallacy, and this is one of my favorites. The name comes from a certain legend of a man in Texas who shot bullets completely randomly. He then went to the spots where the bullets landed and then drew targets around those bullets and then proceeded to call himself a sharpshooter. Some proposals tend to ignore universal data sets and instead pull and find data that support their claims. This is the Texas sharpshooter fallacy. We'll be talking more about this later, so keep this in mind. You also have the false dilemma fallacy, which is caused when proposals say things like problem X can only be solved by solution A or solution B, or problem X is only caused by A or B. On consulting with experts on the subject in which the proposal was written, we found that there were multiple other solutions. False dilemmas don't leave space for a middle ground and provide extreme solutions for simple problems. Then you have the ad populum, which is a belief that the most popular opinion is the most accurate opinion on a subject, when there is a chance that it is not. You have the final two fallacies, which are a little bit related, but they're not the same. The first of the last two is called the causation fallacy, where the argument states that since an event A occurred before event B, event A caused event B. Then you have the correlation fallacy, the final one, which states that since A and B are correlated, A caused B or B caused A. So there's just no chronological order. The causation fallacy has a chronological order. The correlation fallacy does not. Now, it is one thing to identify the most frequent business proposal fallacies, but we also wanted to identify the fallacies which were most often identified by proposal evaluators. And so when we did that research, we found that the hasty generalization, the Texas sharpshooter, the argument by gibberish, the correlation fallacy, the false dilemma fallacy were the most frequently observed logical fallacies. While it is impossible to completely eliminate logical fallacies from your document, it would be great if you can at least eliminate the top 5, because they are the most easy to identify when a customer is reading them. We've also developed a systematic methodology of writing content that eliminates or reduces the possibility of logical fallacies. There are 3 pillars on which an airtight argument or an argument without logical fallacy stands. The first pillar is structural integrity, and you can develop this by precise writing to the point without beating around the bush, and using a pyramid principle as a pyramid structure in writing, very similar to this image that you see. And then you have specific paragraph points. Make sure that you first introduce your thesis, then you state facts and provide proofs, then you also refute counterpoints and make a strong conclusion. The second pillar is the strength and power pillar of an airtight argument, which is based on sincerity, sequence, and specifics. Sincerity being the fact that if you are unable to convince yourself on the authenticity of your argument, it is very hard for somebody else who's reading it to be convinced. So make sure that you are sincere when you make a claim. Step 2 is put them in the right sequence. Put the most powerful arguments, the most solid arguments up in the front, and that will make sure that impresses the reader, and the rest of your document is also very clean with limited logical fallacies. Then you have specifics. The more specific details you provide, of course you shouldn't go on into too many details, but give just the right amount of specifics. Use names, logos, graphics, numbers, and that will help improve the specificity of your message. The final pillar is substantiation, which again falls on 4 other pillars, which is context, collaboration, circumvention, and conclusion. You have to always be contextual. If you are selling a product that a customer doesn't need, or a market, or you're addressing a market which is irrelevant, then you have a problem with substantiation. The customer would not be interested in reading your proposal if it is not relevant to him. You also have to provide sufficient corroboration, which is evidence to support a claim that you make. At least 3 points is a good practice. Then you have circumvention, where you refute counterclaims against your argument. Any argument that you make may have a counterpoint. Call out the counterpoints and address them in your proposal, and this will make sure that any doubts the customer has when they're reading your proposal, those things are sorted out. Finally, you have to conclude well and leave the reader with a good question to ponder on, or a call to action. We find that this significantly reduces the probability of having logical fallacies in your content. Of course, it's still important that once you've written it, there has to be a thorough review of the document to identify logical fallacies, and people who are trained in identifying logical fallacies have to be used for the purpose. We hope you've enjoyed this presentation, and if you have any questions, feel free to drop an email to me, or text me on my number, or call me on the number that you will find in the next slide. I hope you all have a wonderful day and a great weekend ahead. Thank you.